All right, and we're recording. So thank you everyone for joining for our Service Fabric Q&A number 51. 50 was was it last year? I think it was last year. Last year. Thank you all for joining. As always, we have Anthony, Peter, Mike, and others from the Service Fabric team speaking with us today. A quick reminder that this particular call is not under NDA. We actually post to YouTube as well, but it is being recorded, and we will share the recording both on YouTube and on the in the ACP, where you saw the announcement for this webcast, as well as the ACP webcast calendar. We'll monitor the chat for any questions, and otherwise, team, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first Q&A for 2021. Excited to be back. As I said, the agenda for today is to just catch up on all the highlights and announcements since our last call, and talk about the upcoming 8.0 and the refresh release of Service Fabric Managed Clusters, and then open up to Q&A. And we are hoping to go back to the former structure that we had started last summer, to dive into a particular feature or topics and do presentations demo starting next month. So I'll let Peter walk through the upcoming 8.0 and some of the highlights, and then I can give some update on the OSS side.
Sounds good. Thank you, Anthony. Yep. So to start off with, I just wanted to bring up the fact that we did deprecate the Service Fabric Mesh preview earlier this month. So based on customer feedback, we decided that we needed to reevaluate the offering that we were providing with Service Fabric Mesh, and we're going to be investing a lot more into Service Fabric Managed Clusters and some of our other serverless container offerings to try and provide the functionality that our customers want. So if you haven't seen it yet, I am sending a link to the blog post, which has some more details. And if you have any additional questions about this deprecation, feel free to reach out to me. Moving on from that, we also had some major features come out last December in the 7.2 release. So we now do support availability zone spanning using a single virtual machine scale set. So instead of having to deploy 3 node types with each of them pinned to a zone, you can now deploy a single node type which actually spans 3 zones. It still does have a 15 node minimum requirement for now, but we are working on some improvements in the future, which should bring down that minimum to 9 nodes. So I'll talk more about that later this year when I can provide some more updates, but we're really looking forward to that improvement. And the other major improvement I want to bring up is the introduction of stateless node types. And stateless node types are a feature that we've been building for a while now, and they enable you to actually use multiple placement groups when you're deploying a Service Fabric node type. So previously, the maximum number of nodes in a single node type was 100 VMs, and that was limited by the placement group setting on the cluster. And with stateless node types now, we have better integration amongst these placement groups, and you can actually deploy 300 VMs in a single node type as long as you're running stateless only services on that node type. And you're also going to see better performance when you're trying to scale up and down on that node type. Since there are less safety checks we need to do, we are able to scale that up and down a little bit faster. Moving on to Service Fabric Managed Clusters. Yesterday, we announced our first refresh release for Service Fabric Managed Clusters. And with that preview release, we are now introducing support for ARM application deployments. So you can now define your Service Fabric application as an ARM resource and deploy it onto a managed cluster. We've had a lot of customers waiting for that, so we're happy we can finally provide that functionality. We have also made it easier to actually customize some of these settings on your cluster. So things like network security group rules can be customized. You can now enable automatic OS upgrades on your cluster. And a cool new feature as well is you can update the OS SKU on a node type in place. So if you want to move from, let's say, Windows Server 2016 to Windows Server 2019, you can actually make that upgrade in place without having to add a new node type to your cluster. So it's going to be a lot easier to do those major OS upgrades in the future. And I'm just going to send a link to our GitHub repo after this. But if you have any feedback or any questions about managed clusters, we would really love to hear about that from you. And if you have any other feature requests that aren't currently tracked on our roadmap, we also want to hear about those. And lastly, I am going to talk about some of the features coming up in the 8.0 release. So we will finally be GAing support for .NET 5 on Service Fabric clusters. Right now, we're supporting that in preview, and we're going to be happy to make that generally available with 8.0. We're also going to support multiple stateless instances on a single node starting in 8.0. So you can create multiple instances on that one node and define it to meet your needs. We're also going to have some major improvements to the backup and restore explorer on SFX. So you're going to be able to make more modifications. You're going to be able to see a lot more about your backups in SFX, and it's going to provide a lot more information to help you understand what is happening during each of these backups. And lastly, we're going to add support for moving stateless instances from one node to another. So we're going to be introducing a command that will let you actually take that stateless instance and move it from one node onto another node. And if there's any more questions about 8.0, I'll be happy to answer them in the Q&A. And I'll hand it off now to Nandini to speak more about the OSS improvements.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, just to append to what highlights that Peter called out, I think that there are, for some of the areas that he mentioned, we have a dedicated blog post, which was published like post the November call. So please take a look at it and post any questions there. So before we jump into the Q&A, I think the last topic we want to cover for today is give an update on the OSS code repo update. That's I know we keep hearing from you, from the community, what's happening there, what's the update. We have started investment last semester and we made some good progress. So the current update I would like to give is we are planning to do a code package update for the Linux code package update targeted for mid-March, and the Windows code update in our public Service Fabric public repo will happen sometime by April, end of April. And we will also do a blog post when these things are available to keep the community updated. And we are taking this time to ensure that the foundational build process that we have is all solid and it's all automated. So in near future, whenever we have new releases published, the public repo is also updated in a matter of days. So thanks for your patience and stay tuned and watch out for the blog post. And one other guidance or reminder I want to share here is about the GitHub issues or our engagement commitment in the GitHub community. So we have started investing time to look at all the new issues created in this year since Jan 2021, prioritize and ensure that we have a good quality response to all new issues created in GitHub. The PMs are investing time there based on the area of ownership, and we ensure that if it's a bug or a feature request, we are capturing that in our internal backlog, and we are ensuring that we are providing that update to the issue ticket, saying that we are taking care of it if we cannot close it immediately. So there is a process, and this has been streamlined. I just want to ensure that continue to give us feedback, valid feedback about a product or new ask or new scenarios, new features you want us to enable in GitHub. But before we open up to Q&A, the last thing on the GitHub issue creation is we want to remind or emphasize that GitHub issues is to only report or issues related to a release like bugs or new feature ask. Please do not use that platform or this GitHub issues to report production issues. We have Azure support page. There is a Service Fabric support public doc that tells you how to file production issues or anything to do with security related issues as well. I think I'll post the contributing updates to the contributing doc in the public repo. It gives you clear guidance on when and how to file issues and for what type of issues you should create a ticket in GitHub, and where should you go for the rest of the issue types. And another reminder is like this is for service. The repo that we're talking about is Service Fabric runtime, but we do have dedicated open source repos for Service Fabric Backup Explorer, Service Fabric Explorer, and different tools that we have built. So if there is an issue specific to that particular area, please go and file an issue in that repo, so that it's easier to manage and we can ensure that we can address your concerns or questions on a timely manner. So I think I'll just paste those links here in the chat. You can read the guidance for creating issues, because we have the issue template is also been updated. It's been enhanced, and we're asking for more information to triage things more effectively. About your environments, about which release caused a problem, where do you see these issues that you're reporting. So please take a look at the updated contributing doc to learn about not just runtime repo, but the other repos as well. And do not create any production related issues here. Just use the support process. And there's a separate doc for the support process as well. Let me put it here. Yeah, I think I'm done, and we can open up to Q&A. If there's any questions on the things that we discussed or Peter and I covered, we can tackle that first and then open up to regular Q&A. If not, we can start. I know that I see some questions in the chat already. Feel free to ask the questions here, or we can look at the chat as well. Okay, so it looks like we don't have a lot of questions. I think I think if there's no other questions on the areas that we covered so far, like we can start taking the Q&A. Folks, feel free to unmute and ask questions. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the chat to see if there's any questions out there. Peter, there's one first question I see is, Peter, is it correct that .NET 5 for Windows will only GA in 8.0? Is that correct? I think it's GA.
So I sent a message to the chat as well. We are targeting 8.0 for the GA of .NET 5 on Windows. We're still running some additional tests. We want to make sure that we do have good test coverage, and we have run a sufficient amount of testing before we announce it as GA, but it should be very soon, as we're targeting mid-March for the 8.0 release.
Thanks. And the next one is Wit. I believe I've answered your question. The question is about whether the Microsoft Service Fabric repo be updated to include links to other OSS repos related to SF. Yes, I think I shared the link to the contributing doc that has been updated. It should reflect, it has links to all the other repos. I did not call out all the different repos that we have, but I just mentioned a couple of them. Yeah. So if there's any issues related to like Backup Explorer or like .NET repos, whatnot, like you should file issues there. Okay, Peter responded there. Okay, there's a question from Wit. Has anyone successfully deployed Blazor server-side specifically with authentication on Service Fabric? Between support ticket using AD?
To kind of shortcut that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've got a support ticket that's been open now for 4 months and I've got an issue that I just filed yesterday. I cannot get any kind of authentication to work running Blazor with Service Fabric. With AD, it fails in a special way. With Auth0, it fails in a different way. Works fine outside of Service Fabric, but has anyone actually tried to put together like a demo, just simple authentication into a Blazor server-side solution? Because unfortunately, I guess at this point, my support ticket's going nowhere.
Okay, so Peter or Mike, you have any, or the rest of the community members have any explored that? If not, I think we can follow up. Thanks for sharing the ticket information. We can follow up and get some update with.
Yeah, I've got the ticket number and
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, we'll chase that down and get some update.
I can say that I've deployed toy Blazor things just to play with it, but I haven't done it with auth. And so if there's something weird there, that would be very surprising.
Yes.
Because
so far, unfortunately, my support guy is stumped. So we've gone nowhere fast for 4 months.
Yeah, that seems like something that we should maybe even work with the Blazor folks to dig into and see what's going on, because
Blazor's just another. Blazor itself runs fine.
Well, right.
It's just as soon as you try to authenticate, it's just doing some weird stuff.
Well, we know that. So I mean, Blazor is always one of these weird frameworks that tries to wire stuff up in interesting ways for you, and we know that you can definitely have authenticated services running in Service Fabric. And I know that you can have Blazor services running in Service Fabric because I've stood them up on my local machine. So I'm curious what is different here.
Yeah, me too.
So if you don't do the auth, the service itself is up. It's just the auth part that is failing.
Yeah, the service works fine. Like I said, especially if I just take it outside of Service Fabric, runs fine. I can log in without a problem. Take the same program, stick it inside Service Fabric, ASP.NET Core, stateless service, fails in weird ways.
So I think I saw somebody raise a hand, like Hessen. I don't know if I'm saying it. Saad, did you have a question?
Yeah, hello everyone. My question is about the generic host integration with ASP.NET Core. There is a ticket open on GitHub issues, and I don't know if you have any updates on this topic. Maybe I can share with you the ticket number.
Oh, is it a support ticket or is it a GitHub issue ticket?
No, it's a GitHub issue ticket.
Yeah, please, can you share that? Or meanwhile, Peter or Matt, do you have any immediate answers for?
This is related with the ASP.NET Core pages that are shipped with the Service Fabric distribution. The SDK supports only the old web host, the eWeb host interface, and this interface is has some problems to integrate with the new other .NET framework like AutoFac or others. And this is why I'm asking this.
I think we may have to. This is. I'm just looking at the issue. It's been.
Yeah.
It's been here for some time, and
yeah. So I don't think that there's been any progress on it yet, but we do understand that that's a gap, specifically since the old way of doing hosting is deprecated officially within ASP.NET. They're trying to move everyone to generic host. The team that manages the ASP.NET integration is aware of this, and I think we need to make sure that it gets scheduled for next semester so we can get people upgraded. In the meantime, that stuff is pluggable, so it is doable. I think there's a couple samples even on the issue, but it would be good to get into the official NuGet package as the way to do things.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other questions.
Great.
So
Actors. Yeah, I guess my next one would be the actors. Are there any plans to Service Fabric updates or actors? Orleans continues to keep making changes, adding streaming support, saving state to pluggable endpoints. Is there any reason to stick with SF actors since Orleans can be hosted so easily on Service Fabric?
I think I would
Yeah,
begin.
so
Me.
okay, so there are lots of. It's true that Orleans, like anything else, can be hosted on top of SF. That said, there are features that you get out of the SF reliable actors that don't exist in Orleans, particularly the strong consistency stuff. If you don't need that, then that's fine, right? There's a reason we support hosting whatever you want. Strong consistency, leader election, state replication, without requiring external stores, those remain differentiated features. The actors do continue to receive investment, but we haven't seen a lot of specific feature requests from folks. So if there are missing features, that you would like to see, I think that that's good feedback, right? We tend to invest where people are asking for improvements. So if everyone's just off already using Orleans and everyone is happy, and the people that are using Service Fabric actors for whatever they're using Service Fabric actors for are happy, then there's no changes needed.
Sure, that's fair.
So if there are gaps, please do let us know. I think that feature requests are always good to see, or at least understand, so we can understand what the gaps are. But the main improvements have been around, tiny bug fixes and issues that people have uncovered. We haven't done a ton of new feature investment because we haven't seen those to be blocking folks generally, or there might be other solutions out there like Orleans. We're perfectly fine to see people use Orleans. It's a great framework and it does receive a lot of community investment. But if there are things that you need out of the reliable actors, or if you find issues, then those, feel free to bring them to our attention. Like string support, I don't really know what that means in the context of Orleans, but with the remoting interfaces on reliable actors, yeah, you can send strings, you can store strings.
Well, I mean, I guess my attention was really kind of drawn there with the Blazor problem. Is that if I've got to start having Blazor hosted externally from Service Fabric, I can't use remoting to get back, get data in and out.
You should be able to. Why not?
I mean, I guess how would you talk with an external client?
Oh, remoting? you mean to, not from?
Yeah, to or from, yeah.
Well, from is a client, right? That's like
no, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, but I guess two, if the only way in is reverse proxy, and it looks like YARP is using reverse proxy, then I guess it seems like it'd have to be gRPC or HTTP, right?
remote proxy, reverse proxy is a separate whole thing.
It is, but I think it's using reverse proxy under
What is
YARP. Yet another reverse proxy or
YARP
whatever
is its own. YARP is its own thing.
They just released a Service Fabric component.
Okay. What you're talking about though is the communication protocol between two services.
Yes.
So the remoting does not touch the reverse proxy.
Yes.
It's direct communication.
Exactly. So I guess if I have something that's external to Service Fabric, say Blazor, I want to talk directly with an actor. If it's external to the cluster, my only way in is the reverse proxy, right? And meaning that remoting is not available.
You can still talk directly to the replica. You can still talk directly to the actor.
Oh.
Most people don't, because that means your cluster service resolution and everything is exposed to clients, right? But if those clients are all in the same VNet, then it doesn't really matter. Other folks have, there's a long and storied history of writing a little gateway service that translates from HTTP to remoting and then routes inside of the cluster. But on the whole, if everything is HTTP, then you're in generally good shape. The actors are somewhat bound to remoting, and that's the only sort of tricky part.
Yeah.
But having that translator service that converts from HTTP requests in to remoting or some other transport is pretty common.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the real thing is let's figure out what's going on with Blazors that you're not.
Yeah. So I just don't have to do that.
Right.
That'd be great. And then I guess just my other question is support for chaos testing on Linux on the roadmap?
I think it is. The goal is always to get Unity there, but I don't know that we have a time frame. I don't know. Somebody might.
It is on the roadmap, but it is probably going to be a while before we actually have it. So I would not expect to see it within the next 3 to 4 months.
Fair enough.
So, Whit, do you mind like capturing that as a GitHub ask in GitHub issue, so
sure.
If it's already there, then point us to the issue so we capture it in a backlog.
Yeah, for sure.
And also maybe give us some background on like if this was available, like how would it help, and if there's any blockers that you have, like how would it improve your current experience?
I mean, I really think the only difference here is that I think that if I'm not mistaken, someone put together a document on the docs that detail the differences between what's available on Windows on Service Fabric and Linux.
Yeah.
And so I think this was the only real differentiating thing that wasn't just Windows specific. Like event logging.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
So I think that's already noted, but I'd be happy to make an issue for it too.
I think the idea, Whit, is that by making it an issue, it increases. There's no upvote on the docs.
Sure.
So we can get it there, and then people can pile on, as people have been doing with the ASP.NET integration, right?
Yeah.
And that's a signal back into the team to say, hey, this is important. People care. Let's go fix stuff.
Yeah.
I think, and we are being diligent about capturing it, and like we're creating a backlog internally of all new ask of feature, these kind of ask in internal backlog. So we'll account for that in planning, so we don't lose track of things.
Sure.
Thank you. I think feel free to ask questions. I don't see any, unless I missed any. Like I don't see any new questions in the chat.
So Andrew has an ask there. It looks like Andrew's new to the calls. Welcome, Andrew. What's the best location to request features?
What is the best location to request features? Yeah, I think the service fabric GitHub report, you know where you can find that, or I can put it here. You can create a new issue for the feature request. If you're not aware of the repo, I can put the link here. Is it Andrew? There are two Andrews. Like anyway, I put the link, and then you can create new issues and put in a mention that it's a new feature ask, and we'll track it in a backlog. Yeah, the GA timeline for managed service, I'm assuming asking for service fabric managed clusters. So Peter, do you want to take that? I think it's sometime in April, but I'll let him give the exact timeline.
Yeah, that's right. So we are planning on having another refresh release for managed clusters around the end of March, early April. And with that, we want to introduce more feature parity. So bring things like availability zone support in the deployment, support for reverse proxy on the clusters. And we would want to follow up with a GA very shortly after that. So probably around the end of April is when we're expecting to see the GA announcement go out.
I think you also posted a blog, right? About the refresh release?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just sharing the link here. Yeah. So yeah, I think the refresh release that Peter mentioned and the parity or the features that has been added to this, we had a detailed blog post. So I put a link here. So feel free to take a look. And please also, I think, Peter, we do collect feedback on the managed clusters in the same repo, right? The service fabric repo.
In the same repo. So
yeah. And I believe like we have a high level roadmap just to capture the progress of service fabric managed clusters in the repo as well. So I can put the link so you can watch out for the progress there.
I see the next question is from Whit on a timeline for mixed OS clusters. That is a great question, Whit. I don't think we have a timeline right now. I really want to see this happen as well, though. So I don't know if Matt or Anthony have anything to add here.
No, I think we know that works today. The thing that doesn't work is secure mixed clusters. And so we've resisted releasing it as any sort of feature because you want your clusters to be secure. And that would require us transferring all of SF security from all the different Windows mixed mode stuff that it does today to, let's say, OpenSSL. So that's work that we just haven't booked yet. I would say that if you do have this as a requirement, we'd like to know about the workloads that you're running. The other things that we're suggesting sometimes is, using something like ACI to schedule the Linux workloads. So you would have most of your brain and control plane in Service Fabric. You'd be able to put your Windows workloads there. And then if you needed to spin up Linux containers, maybe a few for some reason that they could go into ACI. There's lots of scenarios for which that wouldn't work. But that's one of the ways to achieve a sort of heterogeneous thing today. If the actual hosts need to be Linux, then that's also interesting and something we'd probably want to know more about.
I mean, for the most part, it'd just be for container hosting. Most containers are built for Linux machines, not Windows.
Yeah, another request that we've heard is for Service Fabric to support Linux containers on Windows. That's something that we're still working with other parts of Microsoft container support to provide generically. There are some really hacked up ways to get it working, but nothing that the Windows container platform team supports today. So that's another way that we're pursuing this. I don't think I have a time frame for when that would light up.
Okay, there's a next
Is the best place to share any feedback around, why we're looking for that in another issue?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. There might also be one already, so just,
Sure. Yeah, I'll look for it.
It's a pretty common question. That's been a question for years. So
the next question from Steve is, we want to run a modern stuff on Linux for smaller footprint or faster startup, but we have lots of old stuff that we still need Windows. I think it's not a question. Maybe it's just a follow-up of what, but they have similar workloads or similar scenarios where they want to run both mixed workloads. Is it correct, Steve? Or do you have any further? Okay. Okay, the next one is about it's a bit.
Sorry, you missed a month. I've got a whole pile of these things.
Okay, the next one is about having support for common name certificates in ARM template, like other than the primary certificate. Okay, I don't have a timeline, but I would definitely ask with to create a issue like a feature ask for this one, and then we'll. I own the security side of things, like I'm the PM for that, so I'll definitely take this into our planning and we'll keep you posted.
I'll make a whole pile of issues today.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's why I keep encouraging create new issues. I know there are some things that you're actively involved with, I think, but if there's something that you created like 2 years ago, I would definitely still recommend creating a new. So we are focusing on prioritizing the issues that's created in this year and making sure at least give a response. It's even if you're not able to completely close it, but at least ensure that we are tracking it somewhere or giving you an update. We are working on it, and
right.
Thank you so much. Is ECC cluster certificate support on the roadmap? I think there were some issues with it. Sorry, somebody has to educate me on the ECC acronym. I'm looking at opening the issues. I think I can take a look at the issues and I can update you in the issue tickets. I need time to look into this ask. This is the first time I'm looking at it. This is from Juho. So sorry, I cannot provide you an immediate answer, but I can update the issue the next steps. I think any exciting announcements upcoming in the 8.0 release, other than the largely GA of any preview features? I think Peter did cover some of the highlights, like.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go through Peter's list.
No, we don't have it published, but I wish we had a list to share publicly. But any specific features or any specific things that you're looking for?
Yeah, it seems like the last couple of releases y'all had just some really big ticket items in there. That's like, wow, that's fantastic. Can't wait to use it. And it's just just in the window of things to look forward to and see them coming. So it's not yeah, I'd love to use it, but we're already focusing on these other things. Maybe in 6 months I'll get to it.
Mm.
Right.
But I guess also as an aside, also fantastic on I saw Peter opened up a bunch of things on the projects for the managed cluster stuff. Fantastic seeing just kind of the roadmap items in there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I posted the link to what it was referring to, where we are tracking the roadmap. Some of them I think we have to, given the refresh release just was published today or yesterday. Some of the items I think it's parodies are taken care in the preview release. So Peter, I think we might have to go move things around in the roadmap.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to update that.
Yeah.
It's good to hear though that this is the trend that you want to see on GitHub. So I think we'll try and do this a lot more with our newer features. And just coming back to 8.0, it is going to be a lot of GA announcements because just as you were mentioning, Whit, we have announced a lot of features in the past couple of months. So we really want to get them into GA shape and get our customers using them in production. So I think some of the most interesting stuff in 8.0 is going to be around stateless services and the different things you can do with stateless services, and then the other GA announcements to go along with it.
Even that's really exciting. So great.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair ask that we get better at describing the work that is upcoming and that we expect to see in future releases as a part of those roadmaps that we're working on improving.
Any other questions, or have anybody explored the preview of service fabric managed clusters? And feel free to give us feedback in the repo as well. Any breaking changes in 8.0? Is the .NET, is it a breaking change? I'm not sure. Peter, do we have any breaking changes in 8.0?
Not that I am aware of right now. So I think it is very unlikely.
Yeah, as a general rule, we try not to break stuff. And if we do, we usually know it's coming in advance. Even when we break stuff, usually there's compatibility guarantees for a few versions. So any API would get marked obsolete or deprecated in advance of it actually stopping working, and we'd communicate that ahead of schedule. And there's, since we can't just usually turn stuff off, there's almost always some replacement or new way of doing stuff. But yeah, the release notes do tend to have, hey, in a couple of releases, we're going to be changing. The most recent one was we changed some environment variable names, for example. So we do communicate those up front for anything that we're planning on doing.
Yeah, I think we explicitly do call out. I think we've been doing pretty good job at calling out, even if it's going to come in the next future release. If it's a big breaking change, we call it out in the blog post explicitly, in addition to the release notes, like Matt said. So. One of the breaking changes was of .NET 5.0.
Sorry, Nandini. I think we skipped one of Steve's
Oh,
questions.
sorry. Is there a reason the support for managed clusters in existing VNets was removed from planned and put on the backlog?
Yeah, so I'll take this one. That is a good question, Steve. So bring your own VNet support has been a request we have heard from multiple customers, and it is actually very critical for a lot of our internal workloads. So we are going to be investing a lot into it. But on the GitHub project, I've tried to keep the items that will be available in the GA timeline in the plan section. And the bring your own VNet integration is going to be a larger work item, which will likely come probably a few months after we actually GA manage clusters. So I just put it in the backlog for now, but we will be investing quite a bit in bringing your own VNet to managed clusters.
Okay, now we can move on to with a question regarding the .NET 5.0. One of the breaking changes of .NET 5.0 was the deprecation of the binary serializer. While there's a flag I can set in the project to override this, is this something being addressed by SF for future remoting updates?
And there's already an issue for it.
Do you have any update, Matt or Peter?
Unfortunately, the latest update is great. There's an internal work item to track it.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean that's where we're at. I mean,
Okay.
the getting rid of binary serializer is a .NET decision, which is very valid because it's a giant gaping security hole that they've been trying to get rid of for a long time. So they finally did that in .NET 5. Then thank goodness they gave the flag, because a lot of stuff out there in the world still relies on binary serializer, binary formatter, and we need to take the time to go convert to something else. This is one of those, and we need to do it in a compatible way so that during an upgrade, whatever is still running binary formatter can talk to whatever the new thing is. So we'll probably have to do a remoting v3 to handle this. So that's where we're at. Still figuring out how to exactly do that and what the recommendation from .NET is.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks for logging the issue. Okay, we are holding and using managed clusters until there's a great parity with unmanaged. Oh, okay. Good to know. Okay,
Yes.
Steve, you already answered Steve, Peter?
Yeah, so we are working a lot on getting to feature parity. I would expect it to be much closer by the end of the year. And bring your own VNet is one of the more important features, so it will be prioritized. And I do think it will be available by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much full. Did I miss any questions? I think it's all follow-up of the previous VNet tasks. Maybe we should create an, if Steve was the one who asked for that, I think it's good to create an ask in GitHub so we can reference that, Peter, and prioritize it. Are there any alternatives API management for providing ingress to APIs in a cluster? Any other alternatives, Peter or Matt?
Yeah, Peter, there's a bunch of these, right?
There are quite a few. It really depends what you are looking for and what limitations you might be experiencing with API management.
I guess the particular issues we're having is around retries when the naming service returns a cached value. We've gone through all the unique URLs thing. We're now hitting an issue where sometimes it comes back with a remoting endpoint, which obviously can't have a unique URL. So we're having to constantly update our retry policies in API Manager.
Would you mind sending me an email with the issue you're facing there? And then I can try and follow up with the API management team to see if there's anything we can do about that, because it definitely is not a great experience if you need to keep updating it.
Yeah, can do.
Thanks, Henry.
Any plans to reintroduce PowerShell command for updating the cluster admin cert? Forcing ARM redeploys scares my colleagues. Okay. So you are currently using ARM, or you don't for managing this ARM templates for certs, or are you using PowerShell to? Steve, can you elaborate on the concern that you have? Okay, there's a bunch of follow-ups from. Steve, do you mind? I know there's a bunch of follow-ups regarding the cert question. Do you mind speaking up and we summarizing all the concerns?
Hey, yeah, sorry, I'll just come off mute. Yeah, so historically we always use the PowerShell commands for updating the admin certificate in our cluster, which all of my colleagues were happy to do. But on the latest version, it appears that that command has been removed from the PowerShell module, and the documentation now states that you should update that certificate by redeploying the ARM template with a reference to the new certificate thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
And that scares my colleagues because they don't like doing ARM deployments on existing production systems. And that cluster specifically is one of our test clusters, but it was actually been deployed since 2017, and we don't have the ARM template anymore that it was deployed with. And the recent ARM templates don't match how that system was deployed. So no one knew how to make a new ARM template to just update the certificate without risking breaking anything else.
Okay.
I can tell you how we approached that, because we had the same problem. We used the Azure SDK. The latest version of it, the one in preview, allows updates of the secrets, and so of course it's doing an ARM deployment behind the scenes to get the certificate out there, but it avoids having to actually write the brand new ARM template and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we actually just found a machine with an old version of the module on and used that to update the certificate, and it all went through fine. So that was just, I was wondering why the PowerShell command was removed in the first place.
I think that's a valid concern. Like, if you don't mind creating an issue for that, I can follow up. But I think the ARM template is we've been adding a lot of new scenarios or features to work with the ARM deployment practice, and so maybe that's the reason the preference is given there. But if you can create an issue, and I can follow up and see if we can prioritize if that's something that absolutely needed. So Steve,
Yeah.
we can create a GitHub issue, then like I can give you my email as well, and we can have one-on-one conversation if needed. I would like to understand and see how we can help or help you adapt to understand the concerns or the pain points, and see how we can enable you to move to the best practices that we are recommending.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll log an issue on the repo.
And yeah, and put the issue in the chat like after the meeting as well, so I can keep track of it.
Okay,
I think
sure.
we have like 2 more minutes left. I want to make sure, like, Peter, like, I'm assuming did you cover all the managed cluster created? Oh, there's a
Managed cluster GA pricing. So the pricing of the current model of managed clusters is just going to be the cost of the underlying resources. So it'll cost you the exact same as it does to run a Service Fabric cluster today. There's not going to be an additional fee there. But look out for more announcements on our improvements in the managed cluster area.
Okay.
Did we answer Steve's question about how to extract a functional ARM template from an existing resource? Maybe, Peter, that's something you can follow up on.
You can go to resources.azure.com and download your ARM template, but you do need to be careful if you've done a lot of put changes through resources.azure, as the state between your ARM templates can kind of vary if you've done a lot of put and delete changes on that ARM template.
Linux standalone, Mike?
Yep. Are you the one that had the issue? Oh, where's this in the thread? Lee Solos. So do you want to be more specific? So there was answered. We still have Bosch out there. It should still function. You're asking specifically, is Linux supported in that scenario or a different scenario? If you're on verbal, we're still there. I'm not sure if he's still there. I'll drop, I'm not sure. Hey, Lee, if you hear me on this recording, I'll drop my email in there if you can drop me a message. And then we'll keep going.
Peter, quick question on managed clusters and local storage.
Every single managed cluster uses managed disks by default. So you would want to use the data disk instead of the temp disk on with cluster VMs.
But like, do you prevent them from using?
There's nothing preventing you from using them. We just would not recommend using it, as the data path is expected to be the managed disk. So if you're storing any reliable collection or reliable actor state, you definitely do want to use that data disk. If there's a few other files or configurations that you're saving, then you could save those on the temp disk.
Any others that we need to answer?
I mean, I guess there's just kind of the follow-up on it is that, you know, you have the documentation of how to deploy, applications using ARM, which I've thought is, really cool idea. Love to use it, except since we don't have the original ARM template and we've made a lot of changes, we're just terrified of just breaking everything by deploying a new ARM release. That, yeah, our applications could be out there, but something else broke in a really bad way. So just curious if there's like some kind of tooling that exists that simplifies that, or how do y'all do it? But I'd be happy to write an issue about that too.
Yeah, we'll definitely take the issue. You can deploy ARM applications without redeploying your entire cluster. So the applications themselves are deployed as separate resources, and it doesn't actually impact your cluster configuration. But yeah, open the issue, and otherwise just going through the resources.azure and comparing the different definitions in there to create your entire ARM template would be the best solution.
Sure. Okay.
I think we are like past the time, so I don't know, Cesar. Oh, you're still, the recording is on. Okay. I think we'll please anything that we missed out, and if you think we should address it or like at least definitely investigate further, please create a GitHub issue, and you can put that reference here in the chat as well, and we'll definitely review it and try to provide a response as soon as possible. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all the feedback. Please continue to engage with us in the community and feedback on the managed clusters and the unmanaged.
Awesome. All right. So if nothing else, thank you so much again, everyone from the Service Fabric team. As always, we always look forward to these monthly calls. And thank you everyone for joining as well. As mentioned one more time, we went ahead and copied. There's 2 links in the chat. One is for giving us ideas for topics for the next call if you want us to deep dive into anything, as well as a link to leave your quick feedback on today's session, what went really well or what you want to hear even more about, etc. We're always happy to hear your feedback. So if nothing else, thank you everyone for joining. And Anthony, I'll go ahead and hand it back to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, thanks, Cesar. Yeah, thanks again. Like, we're looking forward to a more exciting session like next month with some great topics and more updates. Thank you, folks.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.